Tonight we've got something new. We're going to be building a DJI DC3 from iFlight, and so this is a DJI build that using this iFlight frame, and it has 12 by 12 motor mounting from what I understand, and 20 by 20 stack mounting. So let's rip into the frame, and then I'll jump on to the next section here. Thought it'd be fun to do a DJI in the traditional DJI air unit style, and I actually have the new CATX Vista. The Vista is the smaller FPV air DJI air unit that CATX release, and I'm going to be doing a GT-R 349 from Diatone. I'm going to be putting it in that frame. Sorry, I'm sure that was loud as hell. I'm going to be putting it in that frame, and hopefully you'll see that build right after this one. But I've heard great things about this frame, so I wanted to give this frame a shot first, and you know, kind of see the traditional way of doing it. And we can see we've got gummies for the flight controller mounting. We've got some micro straps to hold down that, and some slightly longer ones to hold down something slightly bigger. We've got a bag of goodies. We've got TPU mounting for our antennae, and a big foam pad that serves no purpose other than to fill the box. All right, so that is the this is the frame here, and you can kind of see what we're working with. It's a fairly straightforward, I don't want to say it's completely a dead cat. Yeah, actually it is a dead cat, now that I'm looking at it. And it's got top plate goes like this. This is the front here, motors, and like I said, it actually looks like the holes are drilled so that you could mount a 9x9 or a 12x12 without any trouble. It looks to be about 2mm carbon, yeah, maybe just slightly over 2mm, 2.1, 2.2, something like that, but seems fairly rigid, good quality carbon. So hopefully, and all the edges have been rounded over on this, even on the top, and the top looks like 1.5 or maybe 1 mil carbon. Yeah, it's like 1.5 mil carbon, so it's not very thick, but it doesn't really need to be. It's just going to be holding a battery up there. It's not going to be super stressed or anything. So, and then it's got what do I do with those little uprights right here? These little guys hold your DJI camera. So that's that is the frame, and going in the frame, I've decided on the Brother Avenger 1507 3600 kV. I pulled these were originally in the Why Not frame, if you saw that build, and they served as the rear, the sort of the tail rotor, if you will, in that, and they actually flew great. They were perfectly fine in that build. That build had other issues that it was a bit more tuning work than I was really into doing, and so we ended up scrapping that particular build and giving it away, and these came out of that. Actually, we replaced these with some normal 5-inch 2207s or something like that, and it didn't fly any better on those, so we went ahead and swapped these out, and they're absolutely perfect. There was nothing wrong with them when I pulled them out, so they should be just fine in this build, and we'll get those mounted up, I think. You know, looking at this, I was really impressed with this mounting pattern having both 16 by 16 mounting and 12 by 12, but when I put it on this quad, it kind of looks funny. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that just looks a little goofy. Kind of makes me not want to use these motors. I do have some iFlight, or some Zing, excuse me, some Zing. Uh, 1404s, which have 9x9 mounting and don't look so goofy and are lighter weight. Now, you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to use these up in this build. I think it'll look okay. Yeah, it'll be fine. So, and then the flight controller stack. The reason we're another reason why those motors would be a good idea. I'm planning on running this Aikon, the F7 Mini HD 2020 flight controller, and that should mount up. So it has 16 by 16. It actually has a couple of mounting options here, one at the front and one at the rear, or some combination therein actually. And then the ESC for it is also a 20 by 20, and we're going to run this 40 amp Speedix and see how it performs, because I've never used anything Speedix related, so hopefully this 40 amp does well and we don't have any issues with it. It's a little bit of a wonky configuration, so hopefully I can get it all. Hopefully this will fit with the gummies that we have, and or the positioning in this frame. If not, we do have an alternate for this guy that that will work. I have a 20 amp HDLRC and a 20 amp hobby wing, so we have a couple of options if this guy just will not work. So I'm not too worried right now, and instead of this XT60 I'll probably put an XT30 on it, just because I don't need, I mean, I'm only going to be running like at most an 850 on this thing. Alright, so first steps first, let's get our motors mounted up and quit the jibber jabber. Alright, and you'll notice that the wires on these are exceptionally long because they were on the Y knot, and the Y knot, being what it was, required a bit more extra length to do what we needed it to do. And so, and I had only picked up 2 of these, so 2 of these are brand new and 2 of these are used, and I have no idea which one's which anymore. Oh, actually I do know which one's which. The ones with the wires on it will be the used ones. So I must have used different mounting in the rear for these. Yeah, because they're these would be M3 and I need M2 mounting for this guy. So we'll get these mounted up. Put the used ones up front. Yeah, we'll put the used ones up front. Yeah, I have another 3-inch that I don't fly at all, and that's really disappointing because I did like the way it flew. Alright, so before I go any further, this does not appear to be directional in nature. So the top side and the bottom side look identical to me, and I've put the motors on this side, and if I have to redo it later I'm going to be very disappointed. Yeah, these are some fairly beefy motors. So the 20 amp should be plenty for this style of motor and an XT30 connector. Okay, let's figure out our mounting situation for our DJI air unit. So the DJI air unit is fairly straightforward. It's not terribly big, and the difficulty with this is that there's no way to mount it. That's really the difficulty. There's no good way to mount it. Tape is about the best you get. As sad as that is to say, it's like they forgot, oh yeah, we need to attach this thing somehow. It really is kind of pathetic that, you know, you pay $200 almost for a camera and receiver, camera, VTX, and receiver, and you know, you end up with something that you can't mount. It's just a little strange is all. And the fact that everything they did was left-handed polarized instead of right-handed polarized, I mean, I suppose, but whatever. And so it mounts into these guys, and these guys just sort of hug your, yeah, I think I'm going to mount it upside down. The thing to watch out for is these connectors coming into contact with this TPU up here, or being bent or kind of snug or anything, and it might actually be better flipped over. I don't know, we'll see. But for the most part, that's how it sits in there. It's kind of like that, and then it either mounts to the top plate or the bottom plate in some variety, some sort of. Well, it definitely doesn't mount to the top plate, so it must mount to the bottom plate, and it must go pretty far back. Yeah. So there are posts that are going to come down through here. It's probably going to be middle, rear, and yeah. This is the problem with the DJI air unit. So rather than use this guy on this particular quad, we're going to save this one for the next one. And instead, we're going to run the 35 amp on this one. Okay, which is right here. This guy has much better design and should allow us to squeeze our flight controller on top of that. So we've got the, let's see, where is the top? So we're going to run this is the DJI port on the side here. This is the ESC port, and yeah, I'm guessing something like this will work, and get it up just enough. Yeah, we'll put the motor wires right on top, get it up just enough, and it should work. Standoffs go on here like so, and then these fit down over top of it, and we're gonna just position it kind of up at the top, and then we could actually run this probably underneath of that if we wanted to. That does touch, so yeah, we're gonna do the stack right there. that'll do. Welcome back. We are going to go ahead and get the flight controller mounted up. Since last time, I have put the gummies in this ESC, and did I say flight controller? I think I did. Man, am I tired. Anyway, I have put the gummies in this ESC and in the flight controller, pulled everything out that we're going to need. I also went through and kind of picked out some, I mentioned this a couple of times, but I like to print out some gummies whenever I have my TPU on the printer. And these gummies are going to go underneath this ESC and keep it just up off the deck enough so that there's enough airflow and everything without coming up too high, without being like a full 1/4 inch. So this little guy will keep us from bumping into our air unit over here. So that's what I've done so far, and now we're just going to go ahead and get everything kind of mounted in the frame. Before we do that, I am going to put the big wires on this guy so that I have an XT30 connector ready to go. And I'm not doing it in the airframe itself. Just make it a little bit easier on the bench here. Just a little bit, anyway. We've got our soldering iron on. We've got this. What else do we need? We need some of the XT30s. XT60s, excuse me. These are XT30s. We need some little tiny bit of wire. And we're going to use up, let's see, that's not enough. This stuff is probably, this is more than enough. What's this? Yeah. Alright, so we're going to be run from there up and back, because we're going to run under the DJI. So I'm going to say right about there is where we want it. Right about there. Okay. Good. And this wire is a little thicker than an XT30 would really need, but it'll work just fine. So the plug on a XT60, we want the exact same style for our 30, and we need a little bit of Alright, put this guy away. We don't need him for this job. Okay, these away. We have our connector, we have our wire, and we have our, yeah. Yeah, so the goal for this particular video is to get our ESC wired up and in completely, and then we'll move on to the flight controller. We'll probably just set it down on top, and then we'll call this video. And then the next one will be us connecting the DJI, which should be a fairly straightforward thing. And then that should be the end of this video, actually, because there's not a lot of soldering we need to do to the DJI. That's one of the kind of the nice benefits of getting a DJI ready flight controller, is that there's almost no additional soldering that you need to do. It's really super easy if you have the ones built just for the DJI. Alright, so negative. This is the negative. Okay. I should probably tin this, huh? Getting warm. Just a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll work. Yeah. Should work anyway. And then the other side, let's get you tinned. Good. And yeah, just want to take this, get it nice and hot. Yep, I think that's got it. Yeah, this I really kind of after I finished up last night, I took a look at the flight controller and the ESC, and I'm actually pretty happy with the choice I made. It seems like a halfway decent F7 flight controller on a 2020 stack. So we should be doing pretty good. And I've got the iron set at 400 right now, which I don't really like the look of that blob there. Alright, that looks better. Come on. Now, the negative over here is a lot harder to get hot, so just get on it. Yep, that looks good. I'll pull this guy. Oh, Jesus, really? Ugh. Yeah, every once in a while you just get these little spider tendrils coming off of your wire. And when it's a terminal like this, when you're trying to make it nice and clean so you don't have any like wires floating around in your space, it really becomes a pain in the ass. Alright, so we're going to set it just like so. Okay, get this one nice and hot. Wow, it was toasty hot. All right. Yeah, I think that looks good. I don't normally put caps on, so if we end up with a lot of noise, I can always go back and retrofit it, but it hasn't been my experience that with the DJI unit anyway, and running 4S, we don't get a ton of noise, so you know, even with 6S, I've been very fortunate in that I just haven't had a ton of noise. And the noise that I've been having is all but on 3S. Every single quad I have on 3S has a little bit of noise, so I'm trying to figure out what that's all about. Yeah. All right. Put this guy back together over there. Now, as I mentioned, we have our some. I picked out some bolts here, and I used metal M2, and what I did was I kind of laid them up against my standoffs and made sure that my standoffs were actually just slightly longer than the bolts I was going to use, and that helps out when we're coming up through this plate as well. So our screws aren't going to bottom out on the bottom of this plate, which is what I was trying to avoid. And this guy here is the front, and we're gonna put one up there, and then one of these little red TPU mounts comes down on top like so. And if we do this right, we can actually just force it right on down. One of these guys, yeah, this guy has a hole straight through, so just set it down and then push. Yep, like that. That does one, and then we'll do all 4 of these guys. And the inside holes are for 16 by 16, and the outside holes are for 20 by 20. So if you're doing one of these at home, just keep that in mind. And you'll see when you go to try to put the board on that, oh gee, I used the wrong holes. One of the other kind of big names in the in this particular realm will decide, you know, we really don't need all that stuff. We just need it to do one thing and one thing well. And I feel like the GoPro does a lot of things really, really well, but it's so damn heavy. It's got an onboard battery. It just becomes sort of this monster that you have to fly with. And I think that we'll see more tools, either software or whatever, using gyro or black box logs to help kind of smooth out the flights, like real steady wise, you know, just things along that particular things in that general sort of classification will get better and better over the next coming months. And eventually the 5-inch quads will stop being the de facto standards, and the 3-inch quads end up kind of replacing them. And I'm okay with that, honestly. I don't have any issues with running around on these 3-inchers. Faster, lighter, smaller, you know. They fly almost as well as those 5-inch ones. Yeah, let's get our pads tinned up over here. Get our flat side down. Okay, there's one side. We'll get our other side rocking and rolling. That looks pretty good. And we will start right here. Let's see, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now in a props out orientation, I generally see that I have to run, or I have to have swapped 2 and 3. So I'm going to try to reverse motors 2 and 3 before I even get over to Betaflight. Yeah, that should help us a little bit, or hopefully it will. There's one. Two. And three. One. Two. How long did I go on that one? Why did I go so damn long? Three. Oh, come on, don't fan out on me. Okay. Yep. 1, 2, 3. See if I can get this in shot. Make it nice and tidy. Okay, one. Two. Three. That's it. Okay, there are the wires. So we should be good to go to set this guy down on top. And the way it works, this blue wire is telemetry and this black wire is ground. So if you look, telemetry is labeled on here and so is ground. So you know which way to orient this plug. It goes in there pretty nice. Always double check your 8-pin plugs because different manufacturers do them different ways. And if you're mixing and matching, even if you're not mixing and matching, double check. Verify, verify, verify. Because you'll cook a flight controller or an ESC or both. You can take it from me, I know firsthand. Because I have killed both a flight controller and an ESC by doing it. And there it is with the flight controller sat down on top. So we're looking pretty good so far. And I think this is the end of this part of the video. Next part will be us mounting up that that air unit. All right. So thanks for watching.